Hello and welcome to another edition of SCAN's Career Corner, co-sponsored by the Greater Long Branch Chamber of Commerce. This segment we're going to talk about counseling, and our guest today is Jamie Malone from Shrewsbury, formerly of Morristown.
Okay.
And welcome, Jamie, and we're here to talk about your career as a counselor.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me, Len.
Oh, we're very happy, especially with such a great smile.
Oh, thank you.
And tell us how you got into this.
Well, so I am a licensed professional counselor, and I guess probably the story would have to start with the fact that my mother is a psychologist. So some might say that my fate was sealed as a young child. I remember going into her office and climbing up in her chair and saying, "Tell me your problems."
That's cool.
So maybe it was destined to be at that point in time.
Most bartenders feel the same way. They say people come in and you tell them the problems, except you're on a very drier way of doing things.
Oh, well, I guess so, right? But as a student, I always loved science classes. I gravitated to science a lot. And then really was exposed to the counseling profession through my public health coursework and found out about pursuing the licensed professional counselor, which is a master's level degree, and loved all of the flexibility that an LPC provides as a career, because LPCs work in so many different settings, in school settings, in hospital settings, with all different ages, all different issues and populations. So for myself, when you think about the flexibility that a career offers over time, as well as really the interest in helping people, connecting with people in challenging points and times in their life, helping them create the change that they want, whether it's change from divorce or career change, or change in regards to some symptom relief from depression, anxiety, other issues like that.
So to recap, to get to where you got, you had to have gone through a four-year college, obviously graduate high school.
Yep.
And did you necessarily need to have any particular subject content in college to kind of lead you into the master's program?
No. Most master's programs don't have any specific requirements in entry. It probably is lovely if somebody's had some exposure to psychology to know that it's an area of interest that they want to study. But I myself, as an undergraduate, was a science major, so I was taking chemistry and physics and things that I don't use on a daily basis in any regard.
But you had a lot of logic skills that you formed by that.
Yes, I hope so.
Well, science, rationale.
Yes.
No, but that doesn't that in some way help you frame sometimes a person's issues?
I think so, absolutely. And also, as I said, my degree actually was public health, which really looks at wellness, looks at what are the factors that contribute more on a group level or a population level to wellness. And that's really what counseling is about, specifically as a field, is really about what contributes to wellness. So while we do diagnose and treat mental illness, it really is even about helping foster wellness and happiness, not just about addressing problems or pathology.
Picking up from what you just said on when it comes to mental illness, do you think where there's been a lot of strides in that respect in our country in terms of recognizing it, as well as from an insurance standpoint, and that it should be something that should be treated, that the insurance company should back?
Right. Those are really big and important questions. I think that there is a lot of attention and a lot of conversation around the importance of mental illness, and that unfortunately a lot of the tragedies that have taken place in our nation over recent years have really highlighted that need. But then the reality of what we do to address that need is really where the challenge lies. And I think it's a lot from community-based solutions and efforts.
Like community mental health centers, that
community
kind of
mental
thing?
health centers, partnerships, having counselors in schools, so that particularly through early childhood, one of the things that's so important, just take a little bit of a step back, counseling is great. The earlier the intervention takes place, the more positive change, the less damage is done along the way, right?
You take certain people, do you think many times it really may be very close to being too late, understanding that they have anger that needs to be controlled, or that they have substance abuse of sorts?
Right.
And if And you probably still remember when companies did not have any diversion activities, or they may have
Right.
had alcoholic on the job, and next thing you know, they're out the door. There was
Sure.
nothing that was really helping them. And I know, your father and I talk about what we have in the bar associations and the statewide programs and
Absolutely.
things like that. And have been very, very helpful in saving the careers of many attorneys who had
Right.
a lot of stress.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
I mean, you have to deal with people who were come in stressed out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Help me, Jamie, help me. No, but in all
Right.
seriousness, man, that people don't sleep. There's all these things that happen.
Well, first off, I'm a big sleep advocate. It's one of the first things that I check
Okay.
in with people about, because I do think we have so many often wonderful things, but stressful things that compete with our sleep. But where do we learn about wellness habits? It's not something that is ever necessarily really focused on or paid attention to, but one of the other things that I think is lovely that has changed with time is some of the stigma that has been associated with psychology and with mental illness. I think some of that has abated to a degree. So the idea of seeking counseling doesn't necessarily come with as much of the judgment as it may have before. And even some of the examples that you give led to a lot of secrecy, I think, surrounding challenges that people had. So they wouldn't admit, or they wouldn't even disclose to friends or to colleagues about what was going on. Whereas now I hear so many stories where someone who comes to me in my practice and says, well, I was talking about this with my neighbor. I was talking about this with my friend, and they said, I should really come and see you. So I love when I hear about those conversations just happening organically.
And aren't you happy that the neighbors do say these things? Because
Yes.
sometimes they say, oh, it's all in your head. Oh, no, okay.
I'm sure those conversations happen too. I just then don't get to be on the receiving end of encouraging someone to go. But yeah, so I think that it's also a really exciting time to be in the field and to be in the profession, because there's a lot of resources and attention focused on wellness and the idea of positive psychology and contributing to happiness and stress management in that way, so that we can have the fulfilling careers that we want, the happy families that we all want to have, so that we have wellness in all aspects of our life.
Depending upon the severity of what you're presented, do you do multiple sessions real fast and then start weaning the person off sessions, and then but still see them on a regular basis, like quarterly or monthly or things like that, as they are getting better?
Sure, absolutely. That very much fits, in general, how I approach things. I very frequently will say in a first session or an early session on that, my goal is for us to stop meeting with each other. So the idea is, and sometimes how I think about it, particularly when I work with children, I talk about building a toolbox that you come into counseling, and there's something specific that might bring you in, a specific challenge that's happening right now. So I'm going to try to equip you with the skills that you need to manage that, to remedy it. But what I hope is that you also get skills so that the next thing that comes down the road, the next challenge that pops up in your life, you're able to walk through that.
You mean the people who say, oh, I'm over that, but now I've got this, that kind of thing?
Well, we know that life is full of changes, right? And even positive changes can have stress associated with it, like the birth of a child,
Oh,
right?
postpartum blues, all those things.
Well, absolutely. And even without postpartum blues, although that's really important, just the transition to parenting, that, or even marriage itself, or a new career. There's a lot of changes that are positive changes, but even with those changes come adjustment and extra demands on us, and trying to figure out how we adjust to those changes in life. Makes a big difference.
Certainly, divorce can be stressful, even
Yes.
for the attorneys who do them, and I don't do them
Yes,
anymore. Long time,
exactly.
long time. It's just because there's no win, and that's no. And I mean, James T. Kirk would say, I don't believe in a no-win scenario, but they
Right.
do exist in life.
Right. Well, and I do work with a lot of families through the process of divorce, because years or decades ago we thought divorce was catastrophic for kids particularly, but fortunately what a lot of research has taught us, that it's about the adjustment post-divorce that actually matters. So it's a really wonderful thing to be able to work with families through that time of transition and try to help establish new norms, new ways of communicating to benefit as much as you can in those situations.
So, how does that affect you in your other real life, meaning being a mommy of how many?
I have 3 little boys.
How old?
So I have twins that are 4 years old.
Wow.
And then we also have a 1-year-old.
Wow,
Yes.
that's great. So would he work with them, or they try to outpsych you?
Well, yeah, exactly. They give me good on-the-job training that goes back to my professional skills, but I also think my professional skills help with parenting as well. So there's a mutual benefit there.
So by running your own business, you still have to have business skills. You have to get yourself set up in terms of how to make sure you get your billing, your everybody's on time, scheduled, things like that, and also have time for your family. So, are most of the let's go back to the career aspect of this in a sense of this is something that you would recommend to people who do well with people. In other words, you can't do this without people skills.
Correct.
And you have to be able to interact and have them be comfortable with trusting you with everything that they're saying.
Yes, absolutely. So that's the foundation of a counseling relationship, is building rapport and building trust, because you're really trying to create a climate in which people feel comfortable to talk about some of their most significant, some of their most personal matters. So yes, having those interpersonal skills are really, really important. But it doesn't mean that you have to be an extrovert. It doesn't mean that you have to be the life of a party. It just has to mean that you enjoy connecting with other people.
Does it ever come a time when someone comes to you and you think that there may be some sort of, not substance abuse, but perhaps a chemical imbalance in their system, that they perhaps may need to see a doctor for testing purposes, that there's something else going on with them that's just not right?
Sure, absolutely.
And how do you handle that?
Yeah. So in the beginning, well, it's different for every individual. There are aspects of wellness that I like to check in with all individuals about, like I brought up about sleep before. So the relationship between our physical health and our mental health is so tightly woven. And so I will always ask, when was the last time you saw a physician? When was the last time that you had a checkup? So that they have at least that information in terms of how that is contributing to their overall wellness and health. And if it hasn't been recent, I suggest that they take care of that.
And there may be from time to time that you see that people are well more than just overweight, since most Americans are overweight, but there's something else going on with them. Or they may be anorexic and too skinny, and that may not be healthy too. And also the manifestation of that is part of what their physical outlook is, as opposed to what they're just telling you.
Absolutely. And that's where I love working in partnership with other professionals as well. So working with medical doctors, working with other caregivers and healthcare providers to really have a holistic sense of what will overall support a person's health and wellness.
If, since we're winding down, if someone were to delve into this, there must be some online resources to tell them where they would need to go to say, is this something I'd really like to do, other than our show, which hopefully a lot of people get to see.
Definitely. So the most immediate places would be, there's the New Jersey Counseling Association, and they have a website that you can search for, but just NJ Counseling Association. And there's also the American Counseling Association. And then even Monmouth University offers a program in counseling, so that's another, just right in our backyard, good resource.
Wonderful, Jamie. I want to thank you for having been on the show, and I want to thank all you viewers for watching another edition of SCAN Career Corner.
Take it from me, living with a chronic disease is no easy task, but I learned to better manage my health condition, and you can too. Take Control of Your Health is the chronic disease self-management program created by Stanford University. This fun, innovative course is now offered to all county residents. Diabetes, arthritis, heart disease, cancer. Take Control of Your Health gives proven strategies to manage these conditions and reclaim your life. See how nutrition, exercise, and various mind techniques can help you overcome depression, increase energy, and manage pain. You'll not only get this book when you participate, you'll also receive the guidance and support of others living with a chronic illness, just like you. Take control of your health in 6 short sessions.
Call the number on your screen to register or get further information at scannj.com. Brought to you by SCAN, Social Community Activities Network, with funding made available by the Monmouth County Office on Aging.
Welcome again to this edition of SCAN's Career Corner, co-sponsored by the Greater Long Branch Chamber of Commerce. Today we're going to talk to a fellow by the name of John Majeski, and he's from Servpro. Servpro, as you know, does a multiple of different good community contracting, helping people get back into their homes. But we'll hear more from John himself. Welcome, John. Welcome to our show.
Welcome. Good to be here.
John, you're in Servpro. How long have you been in Servpro?
Servpro is a nationwide franchise, about 1,700 franchises nationwide, and I've owned the Servpro of Eatontown Long Branch franchise for about 7 years now.
So is it territorial? There's a certain area that you...
It is, yeah. We have certain areas that we work in.
So 7 years, you must have seen the majors, meaning Irene and Sandy.
Seen a lot of everything. Yeah, Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Irene, and not to mention just the normal day-to-day things that happen, like broken hot water heaters. We do hoarder cleanup as well, biohazard cleanup, so we do a little bit of everything.
So when someone like myself, who family comes to me and says, my uncle died, and we found that there are probably some of his cats that weren't taken care of in the last 2 hot months, you would go in and...
That's the type of cleanup that we do.
That comes in and out. It's good to know. How did you come about that you wanted to be a Servpro franchisee?
Ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted to have my own business. So right out of college, I was working up in New York for about 4 years and really wasn't happy what I was doing. And I figured out, this is the time of my life I need to find out exactly what I want to do, find a business. So I looked at different business opportunities, found Servpro, and, fell in love with it, so to speak. We're out there, we help people, people in their time of need, whether they had a fire or water damage. We come in, we clean up everything so they can get back into their home. And I saw that, and I'm like, wow, that looks like an amazing thing. You can make a living doing it, and then you can also help somebody. So that's how I got involved in that 7 years ago.
So you do mold cleanup, from what I understand, so that when someone's buying a house and all of a sudden their inspector says, I think there's mold around here, the owner may not have even known it. You're the kind of person that goes in and says, yep, and this is what we're going to have to do to clean it up.
Exactly. So we do a lot of mold remediation. That's one of the core functions of our business, services that we offer. So we do a lot of mold remediation work. It's, with realtors, so to speak, like the example that you gave when somebody's going to be selling a house, or if somebody, say they had a roof leak that they didn't realize for a while, and then they go up in their attic and they find a lot of mold in that area. But that's something that we definitely do.
Do you find that in talking to Servpro franchisees like yourself in different parts of the country, that our area, the Eatontown, Long Branch, Jersey Shore area, is more susceptible to mold, for example?
It really depends. I would say if we have like a storm event like Irene or Sandy, absolutely. Say in the Midwest, if they had a big rainstorm event over the course of a couple weeks, then down the road that could lead to mold issues. It's mainly if there's something wrong with the building, so the building envelope isn't intact. So you have a roof issue, a penetration maybe from a vent, something like that. That's generally what causes the mold. If you were to, let's get back to the example of the hoarder or the person who passed on without taking care of his animals, do you guys have to, well, let me get back there a second. What training does Servpro give you? Because this is a lot of crazy stuff you do. Exactly, yeah. So when I first got started in the business, I came from a financial background. That was my career for 3 to 4 years. Before that, I did a lot of hands-on construction type work. So when I figured out I was going to buy the franchise, I went down to Gallatin, Tennessee, which is the Servpro national headquarters, and went to a training program for about 2.5, 3 weeks, where they kind of give you training on what you're going to be doing, so to speak. But I had a general construction background that is very helpful in Servpro, the type of work that we do. So a lot of it is on the job, and then you have a local trainer within Servpro that helps you, with certain jobs. Say you're not sure exactly what to do, they can actually come out and help you to make sure everything's done correctly. So in the case that I was starting to ask you a question about where the dead animals are, it may have been there for a while. Absolutely.
You may, if you were confronted with that, you're saying, maybe you ought to call this guy. and he's the guy that says, okay, John, this is what I would recommend. What did you see? And you say this, 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 this.
Exactly.
This. Do you ever have to get suited up for things that, I mean, I would be afraid
Absolutely.
of going into a place like that.
Yeah. One of the most important thing whenever you're dealing with animals is if, say you're dealing with raccoon cleanups, we do. Say somebody had a raccoon in their crawl space. Number one, you want to make sure the animal's not there anymore. If it's a situation where there could be, feces or, parts of the animal left behind, we always make sure we have the correct personal protective equipment or PPE. You want to make sure that you're safe first. You don't want to get anything from anything left behind, or leave your workers or yourself to an instance where they could get sick.
So, to some degree, does your work overlap with, say, an exterminator? Those that come in and do what I mean by that is, you're in a house, you'd see the raccoon. Next thing you do, you see this big swarm of wasps someplace.
Yeah, or termites.
You see a lot of termites.
Yeah.
And you can do that as well.
Yeah, we don't do the exterminating, but we'd alert the homeowner and say, hey, look, we saw in your crawl space, we saw a lot of termite damage. That's something you need to get looked at. Because most people obviously don't go down in their crawl space. So people, it could be like 6 years and nobody's been down there. Next thing you know, you find out you have an animal colony down there. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens. We run into it on a pretty regular basis.
So you have an advantage in that you did have some construction experience. Tell me a little bit more about that, or tell our viewers a little bit more about that.
So in the past, I did marine construction, hands-on type work. I helped my father doing some remodeling type of work. So what I'm getting at is it was totally different from what I did when I worked in New York City. So I didn't have a white-collar background, so to speak, as far as working at a desk every day. So when I got that job and started working up there, it was kind of a departure from what I was used to. So when I got into Servpro, it's a blue-collar type work that you're doing. So I had that background of kind of getting my hands dirty, so to speak, and then knowledge from doing carpentry projects with my father and things like that.
Now, you said earlier that your territory is Eatontown, Long Branch, and as you know, John, I've got 2 offices, one in Long Branch and one in up north in Bayonne. If I were to call you and say, John, can you help me out with this property in Bayonne, you could do that?
We could do that.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
They want us, Servpro as a franchise wants us to be able to help our existing customers.
I see.
So they don't want us to say, I can't help you out up there. We want to make sure that you're taken care of. That's the main thing.
And if it was really something at a distance, you would say, no, go to this guy who's down in Cape May or whatever.
Exactly.
Else.
Exactly.
So you still, though, are a businessman, and you still have to keep all your skills as far as keeping your book straight and your scheduling. And at any given time, do you have to get some additional help or hire additional people or temps or things like that?
We do. Like when I started off, it was myself and a helper, and now we have roughly between 15 and 17 employees right now.
Really?
So we have people, in the office. We have production managers. We got the crews that actually go out and do the work. So as you grow, as the business grows, you get the people to basically take things off your plate. At first, I was doing everything, and you get to the point where you can't do that. So we bring people in, good quality people.
So whoever this was in Tennessee said, I think there's a need out there, and they started Servpro, and quite frankly, there is a huge need. I mean, one of the things you mentioned was hoarders. I mean, there are a lot of people that don't realize that hoarding is really serious. I mean, it's serious not only, and we had a counselor here before, and we didn't talk about hoarding as an issue, but it's not only dangerous to the individual, but dangerous to the community, especially newspapers, rodents, and things.
And things like that. Majority of our work is water damage, so water damage cleanup. So that's broken hot water heaters, say sprinkler head goes, things like that happen on a regular basis that people wouldn't realize. And then, smoke and fire, water cleanup, and then mold remediation. The hoarding cleanup isn't as much as, as those other parts. So I don't want you to think that we do like 5 of them a day.
No, I understand that, because hopefully there aren't that many out there to really keep dangerous, to the community. But
exactly.
No, but it's important to know that there are people out there that do these weird kinds of things. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not really calling the business weird. It's just that there aren't too many people with specialties that do things that nobody else does.
Yeah, or the employees that are willing to do it, because we get referrals from other companies, cleaning companies, that, they see it and they're like, we don't want anything to do with this. But the type of work that we do, is and can be, kind of dirty, difficult work. So we're used to doing it, so it's something that we can take on. So I would say, as far as hoarding jobs, it really depends on the cycle, that year, what's going on. But we can do, quite a few.
And based on all the other things you just told me, where do you dispose of the water heater, the rodents, the newspapers, and where does all that stuff go?
So like hot water heaters and things like that, the plumber takes that and disposes of it the right way, because we don't do the replacement of it, because you need a plumbing license for that, which we don't have. So we actually do the cleanup. So it would be any kind of debris that they had. We follow whatever the EPA guidelines are. If it can be thrown out in a dumpster in a general landfill, that's what we do. As far as animals, we don't get rid of any animals, so to speak. So we'd have to call in somebody for that.
The animal control
Exactly.
units of wherever it is.
Yeah.
When both Irene and Sandy broke out, there were all sorts of newspaper articles about how you can get rid of mold. And then there's all these other things that say molds are such tiny spores that it's almost impossible, that if you use Clorox or anything, you're only just compounding the problem. Is that really the case, John?
Exactly. The thing with mold grows because there's water. So if you have a flood and it isn't dried correctly, that's when you have mold grow. So if you hired a contractor, somebody like Servpro that came in that dried everything, removed the affected building material, that could be affected by sewage or salt water, whatever it was, and then you dry it, you're not going to have any mold. It's the situations where, say, they didn't dry it quick enough, or they didn't remove the specific building materials, and that's when they have the mold grow. And bleach doesn't get rid of mold; it just bleaches it. It doesn't
Just makes
kill
it white and that's it. Turns the black to white, but they're still there.
Exactly.
You still have to dry it out.
Yeah.
So is this something that you would recommend to other people, that this is a rewarding thing? I mean, there must be some jollies in the sense that you do it, people get back into their houses, and it's like, John, thank you. I can't thank you enough.
It's great, especially in the beginning when I was in the field a lot, the first few years. I mean, I had people, make me sit down at their dinner table and have dinner with them, because they're so happy that you're here. Maybe they have 3 inches of water in their basement, and we're getting it cleaned up for them. So it's very, very rewarding. But like any business, there's challenges with it. The thing about Servpro is we're open 24/7. So it's not like I close the door at the end of the day and I say, okay, I have 12 hours or 10 hours to relax and nobody's going to bother me, and so to speak. So in the beginning, I was working 7 days a week, pretty much all the time, because people would call you like on Saturday.
What'd your wife say about that?
Well, we weren't married at the time.
Okay.
And she's fantastic, very supportive, so she understands how it is. But it can be difficult.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because a good friend of mine, his very first big job was on a oil spill from a tanker in the New York harbor, and it was on his wedding day.
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, he had to go out because business is business, getting the pontoons and things. But it must be somewhat, you must have a variety of different pieces of equipment. I mean, with the variety of things that you have to do, and it's probably not inexpensive.
Yeah, definitely not inexpensive. We have a variety of equipment for all the different services. Not only the equipment, but the cleaning products. So for cleaning different types of smoke and soot, you need different cleaning products, which we have. They're actually made in Gallatin, Tennessee, where Servpro's headquarters is. But we have basically a warehouse full of equipment to do the different jobs that we do.
And given the fact that we talked earlier about odors, you also do things that will make the house smell better when people go back.
Exactly.
In the few seconds we have left, tell us, John, a little bit about your external affairs and like, I know we met you a couple times at Rotary, but a lot of times
Yes.
you can't make it because of your own demands.
Exactly.
But I know that you're involved in the community, and that's all part of being part of the community, I guess.
Absolutely.
Part of Servpro. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have someone here who franchise operator, Servpro, and his job is to make people happy. John, I really appreciate your having been on the show, and I want to thank all those viewers who have watched Scan's Career Corner.
Thank you for having me.